Oh, well, welcome to another edition of 42nd Street Pete's Grindhouse, Really Weird Cinema. I guess people thought the last episode sucked because only one person commented on it, and my response to that is, after going through a whole day of drinking basically a half gallon of fucking white grape juice laced with a whole bottle of Miralax and two fucking laxative pills, and spending the day before on the bowl and then going in at fucking horrible hour at like 5:30 in the morning and getting a tube shoved up your ass. I don't even know why I did that show, but that's beside the point. So anyway, let me take you back to 1979. Interesting little film that sort of starts off slow, then sort of revs it up in the last act of it, for lack of better words. Silent Scream. Another one that hit the grindhouses and drive-ins. And it's this house, this weird house owned by the Engel family, who decide to rent out rooms to college students. And there's 4 college students, this one girl that comes in late in the day, played by Rebecca Balding, and this rich guy, and this jock, and this other girl. And I don't even know who the hell they are, because it seems the backstory on this picture was that it was originally shot and didn't have any names in it except for Barbara Steele. And it had to be reshot with names like Cameron Mitchell, Avery Schreiber, and Yvonne DiCarlo. And they only used 12 minutes out of the original shoot. So they beefed it up like this. But anyway, these people get in there and they sort of like, Rebecca goes for the jock right away, who wanders around for whatever reason with his shirt off or open most of the film. The other chick pairs off with the rich guy. They are partying on the beach. They get drunk. The rich guy is left there, and all of a sudden he wakes up to someone stabbing him like 9 times in the chest. So anyway, the cops are trying to figure out what the fuck's going on. They don't know. In the meantime, the one girl is doing her laundry down there while the other 2 are basically screwing near a vent, and she can hear them, and she looks down and she smiles. Then all of a sudden she's attacked in the laundry room and stabbed a bunch of times. So anyway, she's sort of missed, and the cops sort of don't know what's going on. And Rebecca decides to wander around there and finds this trap door and winds up in a room with Barbara Steele and a corpse. Barbara Steele is Victoria. And Barbara Steele has Victoria has 2 obvious lobotomy scars on her head. And all of a sudden, the mother, played by Yvonne DiCarlo, who was basically standing guard outside the door, and the son, Mason, who busied himself by watching army movies and some bondage stuff on TV, pin her to the floor and shut her up because the other guy's looking for her. And now we get the whole weird-ass backstory that Victoria was pregnant with somebody's kid and decided to hang herself. But even though it sort of was successful, the rope broke at the 11th hour and she was brain damaged. And there's stuff on the report that she basically tried to hack up her former boyfriend and is homicidally violent and was institutionalized and lobotomized. And you see the mother and the young Mason standing there, and basically Grandma raised Mason as her own kid, and is now telling him that guess who your mom is, this nutcase. So Mason poo-pooed this whole thing off, snaps, goes downstairs, whacks the jock in the head as he knocks on his door, leaving him in the hall unconscious and shirtless, and dresses in his grandfather's army uniform, takes out his .45, goes up there and says, well, now I'm going to take over. You should have never told the kid I wasn't his father, and is going to shoot Victoria. So him and Mom wrestle for the gun. The gun goes off a couple times close to Rebecca, who's been tied up in the closet. And they wrestle for the gun, and bang, Mom gets it and dies. And Mason's crouched over her body when Victoria realizes what's going on and reaches under her bed and pulls out a knife, and is advancing on Rebecca when she sees Mason's crouched over Mom. and she starts to stalk on Mason. Well, Rebecca manages to make some squeaky noises under her gag, which alert Mason, and he turns around and the gun's out of ammunition. So he shoves another clip in and puts a bullet through Victoria. Then turns the gun on himself and blows his head off, but you won't see that. You just see a splash of blood on the curtain. Well, guess what? Good old Victoria ain't down for the count yet because it's only a wound that went in here and went out her back. So she's advancing on Rebecca. The guy wakes up finally at the bottom of the stairs. Now the cops put two and two together that basically Victoria was checked out of the nut house 15 years ago and she must be living home. So all these cop cars and they just run up there and stuff, and Rebecca slams into Victoria and Victoria falls on her own knife, and that's it. And the cops show up. Actually, the cops had showed up in the beginning with a bunch of bodies laying around, and it sort of ends with a bunch of bodies laying around. So, like I said, it sort of kicks into high gear in the last act. And Karen Mitchell and Avery Shriver, but just two detectives wandering around, almost in the same mode as Burt Young and John Saxon in Blood Beach. If the house sort of looks familiar, it was the same house that they had another dysfunctional family in there, the Mary family, when they did Spider Baby in the 60s, back at that old house. Rebecca would go on to do another horror movie in 81. Let me see, am I right? Yes, The Boogins, which was a perennial favorite on HBO. I didn't see it in the theater, I saw it on HBO. That had to be back, probably mid-80s. I guess it didn't do too good theatrically and got sold to cable. And I thought it was cool back then and didn't see it for 20, 30 years. And then I found a copy of it at Liquidators when I was in that illegal apartment where I could only watch tapes and whatever. So I decided to go home and settle in for a night of, reminiscing about this monster movie, which in reality totally sucked. It's some kind of monster in these mines out in Utah that gets waking up, and it's a really low budget production because they only could afford one creature, but they sort of segue it as a bunch of them. One guy, this tentacle drops down from whatever, and he grabs the tentacle and wraps it around his neck and gets yanked up. It's on a dolly under a car, one of those creepers we used to use for working under cars and stuff like that, and they push it back and forth. So, yeah, it's real low budget, but it seems that Rebecca Balding met her future husband there, and they got married on the set, I think, or something. And she basically just did a lot of TV, a ton of TV appearances, until she passed away in 2022. So, yeah, that is another one, another really weird cinema, something that you really think is great when you first see it, and then you don't get a chance to revisit it right away, and then years down the road you see it, and it kind of sucks a bag dicks. But anyway, unfortunately, we got some bad news here. Few passings. Jack Taylor, one of the kings of Euro horror, a bunch of films over there, he had passed away. Columnist Rex Reed, which basically said that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre was the most terrifying film he ever saw. Donald Gibb, Ogre from the Nerds movies and the old HBO series First and 10. And Super Agent Barry Blaustein, who was responsible for Beyond the Mat, that movie. So yeah, sadly enough, we lost them. And, yeah, I don't know whether people are even interested anymore. Sometimes I get weird about doing this stuff because, sometimes there's a lot of comments, sometimes there ain't any comments. I try to answer as many comments as I can. But I don't know. I just feel, the way things are today, I just feel sometimes detached from reality sometimes with some of this shit going on. I don't even want to dwell on it. And I haven't done the crazy old man in a while because I don't want to stir more shit up. But honestly, the whole situation's getting worse and worse. I just went down to buy hamburger meat because that's the only way I can afford to eat beef. And it's now like $6 a pound for the good stuff on sale. Off sale, $9 a pound. Would you ever think we would live in a world where a fucking hamburger meat's almost $10 a pound? And if you go buy a hamburger in a regular restaurant or diner, it's like $10 for a fucking hamburger. You ever think we'd get to that point? Kind of sucks. But it is what it is. So, And then someone had said something about me making comments about some of these new releases that are coming out and things like that. To be honest with you, I'll even say the movie, and probably people haven't heard of it, Hunter's Blood. Something that popped up, and I don't even know if it even ran theatrically. I only saw it on a video cassette, Charter Home Video or something back in the day. Is it a bad movie? Not really. It's a bunch of city people going down to hunt in Arkansas and run into a bunch of inbred hillbilly poachers that are pretty fucking violent and nasty and shit. But to put a set out like this for $65 in today's economy, I don't know what anybody was thinking. And they're not the only ones that did that. There's a couple other movies that are like ridiculously overpriced. I mean, some people want all the bells and whistles, and a lot of people can't afford all the bells and whistles. So if I may make a suggestion instead of starting a fucking fight, why don't some of these companies put out, a bare bones edition for the people that really can't afford the special editions? I mean, I'm not averse to paying $20 for something I really want to see, but that's about my bottom line. 65? No, I don't think so. Like I said, I really don't need all the extras, and probably a lot of people don't need all the extras. But that's just my opinion. I'm not shooting on anybody or anything like that. I'm just saying that there's two schools of thought out there. I could be a prick and rake it over the coals, but it ain't worth it. Plus, it's honestly a movie that a lot of people never heard of. And probably a lot of people ain't going to drop that kind of coin on it anyway. So, like I said, just my opinion. There should be, maybe a little budget thing for people that, aren't doing so well. But, like I said, that's my opinion. That's all it is. Opinions are like assholes. We all have one. So that's it. So anyway, that's our show for today. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoy the weekend. I hope this weather warms the hell up. Shout out to our friends at Grindhouse Releasing, thefuseboxshow.com, alternativecinema.com, somethingweirdvideo.com, mitchoconnell.com, dangerousginger.com, shockcinema.com, and any .com I didn't mention. So again, stay safe. We'll catch you on the flip side.